You've got to really, really enjoy a car to keep it 40 years. Yes, 40 years, like the 40-year-old virgin. I don't know why that's the first thing that came to mind. And if you have a Nissan 350Z or 370Z, then congrats. Z cars, the 1976 Datsun 280Z, known in Japan as the Fairlady Z. And it's quite the interesting little machine with a little bit of a troubled past. And this example only has 78,000 original miles on it. And it's immaculate. And what exactly does salad dressing have to do with it? Stick around to the end to find out. In 1975, Nissan released the 280Z in North America, and it didn't come without backlash. You see, Z people, they're a special breed. Actually, my brother's one. And they weren't too happy while comparing this Z to the original. They wanted the tininess and the swiftness of the original 240Z. But this is the 70s, a very interesting time for automobiles. So the car gained some size alone just with the government-mandated 5 miles per hour shock-absorbing bumpers that appear to be just glued to the front and back of the car. But despite the negativity, the 280 performed very well and sold in gargantuan numbers. The 280ZX was a completely different machine than its predecessor, aside from the engine and a few other driveline components. And it was available as a 2-seater or a 4-seater 2+2 model. It was a much heavier and softer car than the 260Z was. The 280 had softer suspension, better sound insulation, more plush seating, and even came available with high-end stereos. The 280 even borrows some parts from the luxurious Datsun 810, like the rear axle and the power steering system, of which this one isn't equipped. The Bluebird 910 inspired the suspension setup on the 280 with its McPherson front struts and independent rear suspension. The 280ZX's body was reworked from the ground up to improve its aerodynamics, now thanks to wind tunnel testing. The open grille featured on the original Z car was now closed. The rear of the car was lengthened to hold a larger 21-gallon fuel cell, which also helped the high-speed stability of the car, a known problem on the earlier generation of Z cars. And in the US and Australia, the 280ZX was marketed as, yes, the 280ZX. But in Japan, it was marketed as the Fairlady Z, and the Japanese market actually got 2 engine options, while all other export cars just got 1. No VQ in this one. All exported 280s came with the L28, which is a 2.8-liter straight 6-cylinder engine, complete with a Bosch fuel injection system to meet continuous constricting US emission standards. The Japanese market got this engine, as well as a 2.0-liter L20 engine used in many Nissan family cars of that era. Now, the Japanese market actually favored that engine in the Fairlady due to tax rules over there. Now, the L28 in this one produces around 170 horsepower and 163 foot-pounds of torque, which may not actually sound like a whole lot, but just remember, the Corvette at that time only came with 40 more horsepower. So in all reality, this really isn't too shabby for the time. Then again, it's not like it has to push around a whole lot. Now that engine was attached to either a 4-speed manual or a 3-speed automatic transmission. Of course, here we have the 3-speed auto. On the 1977 and 78 cars, a 5-speed manual did become available. The original owner actually swapped a 5-speed transmission into this one. It's always been a manual, but they just put in a 5-speed as compared to the 4-speed, which makes it better for long cruising. You're not in 4th gear on the highway, revving at like 3,000 RPM. Instead, you can be in 5th gear, revs much lower, more fuel efficient, and a lot less noise. Man, that's fun. Around 7.5 seconds is what it takes for the 280 to hit 60 miles an hour. And ungoverned, it'll hit a top speed of around 130. And it's a blast to drive. No, it's not the fastest thing in the world. We're talking about a 1976 Datsun here, but it's great fun to road through the gears and not be doing quadruple the speed limit. There's no power steering, there's no power brakes. It's one of the most raw and natural driving experiences that you can have, and it makes you think when you drive it. I absolutely feel that the 260 has much softer suspension than its predecessor. The suspension on this does feel pretty soft. Again, this is a 70s car. Even some of the performance cars had soft suspension. That's just what they were going to. And you definitely feel when you go around a corner, there's a lot of body roll. Not a terrible amount. It's fitting for the car. You don't get thrown to the other side of the vehicle like the Toyota Century that I drove. Oh yeah, there's that soft suspension. Whoa! It's like driving my Jeep. But you definitely roll a little bit. And it's a fun experience having absolutely no driver aids. And some people say that when they review a car with like no traction control and no stability control.
I also like to live dangerously.
This doesn't have any of that, but it also doesn't have power brakes or power steering. Now that's an experience. It makes you work for it. Super easy to shift, super easy to drive once you get going, because even though you don't have power steering, once you're moving, it's not bad. And that straight six just hums along whatever gear you're in. Plenty of power for this. And the engine feels a lot more torquey than those specs show. Man, that's a blast. This 1976 is just a 2-owner car, and the first owner had it for 40 years. That's incredible. And you can tell, this thing is immaculate. It's gorgeous. It's quite literally a time capsule. The only mods that it has are that 5-speed transmission and Koenig wheels, which look awesome. So, what does salad dressing have to do with it? Well, the Z-Cars have had quite the successful bout in racing, and the 280 was no different, especially in US racing. In 1979, the Bob Sharp Racing 280ZX won the SCCA C Production category, and one of the prominent racing drivers on that team?
Actor Paul Newman. This is the season when his skills as a racing driver have come to full maturity.
Mr. Paul Newman, you've definitely dipped your fries in his ketchup before. That sounded incredibly inappropriate. I'm so sorry. I don't even know if he makes ketchup. Again, thank you to Northeast Auto Imports for allowing me to drive this 1976 Datsun 280ZX. But I will see you guys in the next one. Happy motoring. Hold on, turtle in the road. I gotta go save its life. Okay, we're back.